We live in a world that promises freedom. Every day we hear about our rights, our choices, our ability to live as we want. Yet Nietzsche, one of the greatest thinkers of modern philosophy, offers a powerful and unsettling idea. He says that most people are slaves, and they don't even know it. This is not about chains or prisons. It is about a deeper kind of slavery, a slavery of the mind, the spirit, and the soul. Nietzsche believed that most people live their lives in a kind of sleep. They follow rules, customs, and beliefs without questioning. They accept values handed down to them by society, religion, or tradition, as if these were absolute truths. But in doing so, they give away their freedom. They become slaves to ideas, to fear, to comfort, and to the opinions of others. Nietzsche wanted to wake us up, to show us the chains that bind us, even when we think we are free, to show us how we can break those chains and live truly free. To understand this, we first need to look at what Nietzsche means by freedom. For him, freedom is not just about being able to do whatever you want. It is not about following every desire or impulse. True freedom means becoming who you really are. It means creating your own values and living by them. But most people never get this far. They settle for what Nietzsche calls slave morality. This is a way of thinking and living that values obedience, humility, and conformity. It says that it is good to be weak, meek, and self-sacrificing. It says that power, ambition, and pride are bad. This morality was created by those who were weak and powerless to protect themselves. They invented a system of values that praised weakness and punished strength. Over time, this system became dominant. It shaped laws, religions, and cultures. It became the default way of thinking for most people. And here lies the problem. When you live by slave morality, you give up your power, you stop questioning, you stop growing. You become a follower, a victim, a servant. You do not realize that you are trapped. You think you are good and right, but you are only living in a cage. Nietzsche also points out that this slavery is hidden. It is disguised as comfort, security, and morality. People do not see their chains because they are soft and invisible. They come in the form of habits, fears, and social pressure. For example, many people live in fear of what others will think. They avoid speaking their truth because they want to be accepted. They follow careers, relationships, and lifestyles that don't fulfill them because they want to fit in. They suppress their desires and talents because they have been taught these are selfish or wrong. This is a kind of slavery too. It is a slow death of the soul. Nietzsche calls this herd mentality. The herd is the group of people who think and act the same way. They follow rules without question. They value safety over freedom. They prefer comfort over challenge. And the herd is comfortable. It is safe. But it is also deadening. It kills creativity, courage, and individuality. Nietzsche wanted us to escape the herd, to become individuals, to become creators of our own lives. Another important idea Nietzsche shares is about truth. Most people live in illusions. They accept comforting lies rather than face hard truths. For example, they believe in the idea of an afterlife or absolute justice to soothe their fears of death and suffering. They believe in fixed moral codes to avoid the confusion of making their own decisions. They believe that life should be easy and fair, even though experience shows it is not. Nietzsche says that these illusions keep people enslaved. They stop them from growing. They stop them from becoming free. Because freedom requires courage. the courage to face reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. It requires the courage to question everything, including ourselves. It requires the courage to stand alone and say, "I create my own values." Nietzsche also explains how modern society contributes to this slavery. He saw that mass culture, education, and politics often promote conformity and obedience. They teach people to accept mediocrity and to fear greatness. They punish those who think differently or challenge the status quo. In this way, the system protects itself by keeping people small, by keeping them obedient, by keeping them slaves. This is why Nietzsche called modern man the last man. The last man is comfortable, safe, and weak. He has no ambition beyond pleasure and comfort. He is the opposite of the free, strong individual Nietzsche admired. But Nietzsche did not just diagnose the problem, he also offered a way out. The way out is through self-awareness, through questioning everything we have been taught, through rejecting slave morality, through embracing life fully with all its pain and uncertainty, through becoming what Nietzsche called the free spirit. The free spirit is someone who has broken the chains of herd mentality, someone who lives by their own values, someone who creates meaning in a world without fixed truths. This is not an easy path. It requires struggle, it requires courage, it requires loneliness, but it is the only path to true freedom. To begin this journey, Nietzsche encourages us to ask difficult questions. What do I truly believe? What have I accepted without thinking? What fears control me? What parts of myself have I hidden? What do I want to create in my life? These questions open the door to freedom. They wake us from sleep. They begin the process of breaking the chains. In conclusion, Nietzsche's message is both challenging and hopeful. He reminds us that most people are slaves not because they are locked up, but because they choose to live in fear and obedience. But he also shows us that freedom is possible, that we can break our chains, that we can become creators of our own lives, that we can live fully and freely. The question is, are we ready to wake up? In the first part, we explored Nietzsche's idea that most people live as slaves without even realizing it. We saw how slave morality, herd mentality, and comforting illusions keep us trapped. Now, in this second part, we will dive deeper into how this hidden slavery operates in everyday life, and why breaking free requires a radical shift in how we think, feel, and act. To understand this better, imagine a vast invisible web surrounding each of us. This web is made up of expectations, fears, habits, and traditions. It is woven from the rules that society, family, and culture impose on us. Some of these rules are spoken clearly, like laws or social norms. Others are subtle, like the unspoken pressure to act a certain way or to believe certain things. This web controls how we move, how we speak, and even how we think. It shapes our desires and limits our choices. But because it is invisible, most people do not notice it. They think they are free to move as they wish, but in truth, they are trapped. Nietzsche understood this web as part of what he called resentment. This is a deep feeling of resentment and weakness that arises when people cannot express their true power. Instead of facing their frustration, they turn it inward or against others. They create values that praise weakness and condemn strength, as a way to feel better about their own situation. Resentment is like a poison that spreads quietly through society. It convinces people to accept their chains as virtues, to praise humility, meekness, and obedience, to see themselves as good because they suffer or sacrifice. But in doing so, they give up the will to grow and to become strong. This poison of resentment creates a culture where questioning and individuality are discouraged. It promotes fear of difference and suspicion of those who stand out. The herd protects itself by rejecting what is new or challenging. It prefers the comfort of sameness and the safety of rules. But this safety is an illusion. It is a cage that slowly kills the spirit. Nietzsche warns us that this cage is easy to accept because it feels comfortable. Comfort is seductive. It makes us blind to our chains. Another important aspect Nietzsche discusses is the role of education and religion in maintaining this slavery. Schools often teach us to memorize and obey rather than to think and create. They reward conformity and punish originality. Religion in many forms teaches obedience, guilt, and submission. It promises salvation if we follow its rules, but demands we deny our instincts and desires. Nietzsche believed these institutions often serve the interests of the powerful by keeping people obedient and manageable. They create good slaves who do not question their place. But Nietzsche did not see people as hopeless victims. He believed that within each person lies a spark of freedom and strength. The problem is that this spark is often buried under layers of fear and habit. To free it, we must first become aware of the chains. We must see the web for what it is. This awareness is the first step toward liberation. It requires honesty and courage. It means admitting that some of what we believe may not be true, that some of what we have accepted may harm us, that we may have been living a lie. Once we see the chains, the next step is to begin loosening them. This is a difficult and ongoing process. It means questioning the values we have inherited. It means facing fears of judgment, failure, and loneliness. It means standing against the herd and accepting the risk of being different. But this risk is also a doorway to power, to strength, to freedom. Nietzsche encourages us to embrace what he calls the free spirit. The free spirit is someone who has broken away from herd mentality, someone who lives authentically and courageously. The free spirit does not ask for permission to be themselves. They create their own values and live by them. This does not mean acting without care or responsibility. It means taking full responsibility for one's life and choices. It means being honest about who you are and what you want. Becoming a free spirit also means embracing life fully, including its pain and uncertainty. Nietzsche believed that avoiding suffering is a form of slavery. When we refuse to face pain, we limit our growth. We deny a fundamental part of being alive. The free spirit accepts suffering as a teacher, as a necessary part of becoming strong. This acceptance transforms suffering from a prison into a path toward freedom and creativity. Nietzsche's idea of freedom goes beyond political or social freedom. It is a deep, inner freedom, freedom from the inner chains of fear, guilt, and conformity. This kind of freedom is rare, it is difficult to achieve, but it is the foundation of a meaningful life. In practical terms, breaking free from slavery means making difficult choices every day. It means choosing honesty over comfort, choosing growth over safety, choosing to stand alone rather than follow the crowd. It means creating your own path, even when it is hard or lonely. But it also means discovering the joy of living authentically. The joy of being yourself, the joy of becoming who you truly are. Nietzsche's message is clear. Most people are slaves without knowing it because they accept the web of fear, habit, and false values. But we do not have to remain slaves. We can awaken. We can see the chains. We can break free. This awakening is not easy, but it is possible. And it is the key to a life of strength, freedom, and creativity. In the final part of this series, we will explore how Nietzsche's ideas can help us in our daily lives, how we can begin to break free from slavery and live as free spirits, how we can face the challenges and fears that hold us back, and how we can create a life that is truly our own. In the previous parts, we explored Nietzsche's powerful insight that most people live as slaves without realizing it. We saw how this slavery is hidden in the values, fears, and habits we accept without question. We also discussed the idea of the free spirit, someone who awakens from this sleep and breaks the chains. Now, in this final part, let's focus on how we can begin this awakening in our own lives step by step. The first and most important step toward freedom is awareness. Becoming aware of the chains that bind us is like waking from a long sleep. It is a moment of clarity. When we start to notice the ways we have been living according to others' rules, not our own, we begin to see the possibility of change. This awareness often feels uncomfortable. It may bring fear, doubt, or even anger. But these feelings are signs that we are moving toward freedom. Once we are aware, the next step is questioning. Question everything. Question your beliefs, your habits, your fears. Ask yourself, why do I do what I do? Why do I believe what I believe? Who benefits from my obedience? Is this truly my value, or have I accepted it without thinking? Nietzsche believed that questioning is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong practice. It keeps us awake. It keeps us free. Questioning leads to choice. And choice is the heart of freedom. We may discover that many of our choices were not really ours. They were made by fear, habit, or social pressure. But now, we can begin to choose consciously, to say yes to what feels true and strong inside us, to say no to what feels false or weak. These choices shape who we become. This process is not easy. It often requires courage to stand apart from the crowd, to risk rejection or loneliness. But Nietzsche reminds us that true strength comes from within. It is the strength to be yourself, no matter what. To live authentically and creatively. This is the opposite of slavery. Another important part of breaking free is embracing life fully. Nietzsche said that life is not always easy or fair. It includes pain, loss, and uncertainty. But to be truly free, we must say yes to life in all its aspects. This means accepting suffering as part of the journey, not something to avoid. It means finding meaning and joy even in difficult times. This attitude transforms suffering from a prison into a path of growth. To help with this, Nietzsche encourages us to create our own values. Not to accept values handed down to us without thought. Creating values means deciding what matters most to us. What kind of person do we want to be? What principles will guide our actions? This act of creation is the highest expression of freedom. It makes life rich and meaningful. Nietzsche also teaches that freedom is not a destination, but a continuous process. We will face challenges, doubts, and setbacks. We may fall back into old habits or fears. But each time we can choose to rise again, to keep questioning, to keep creating. This ongoing struggle is itself a form of strength. In practical terms, becoming free means making small changes every day. It could be speaking honestly even when it is hard. It could be refusing to follow the crowd blindly. It could be allowing yourself to explore your true desires and talents. It could be letting go of guilt or shame that no longer serves you. These small acts build the foundation of freedom. Nietzsche's message is a call to courage, to awaken from the comfortable sleep of slavery, to face life boldly and honestly, to become who you really are. This is not a message of blame, but of hope. Hope that freedom is possible for each of us, that we can break our chains, that we can live strong, creative, and joyful lives. So why are most people slaves without knowing it? Because they have accepted a life of fear, obedience, and illusion. But you do not have to be one of them. You can wake up, you can question, you can choose, you can create, you can live freely. The truth is challenging. It asks much of us, but it is also freeing. It makes us unstoppable. Remember Nietzsche's words, "Don't be a slave to what others say is good or true. Be strong enough to find your own truth. Be strong enough to live it, and in doing so, you become free." Thank you for joining me on this journey. May your path to freedom be filled with courage and light.